Welcome to All About the Experiences. Today marks episode 37. This has certainly been a long journey of experiences, discovery, and insight. So, speaking of insight, today's guest is the epitome of if success was a person. Born and raised in Riverside, California, he is literally putting a pin in the map for what it looks like to establish a successful business in your own hometown. Not only is he the president of Subtle Insight Entertainment, which is obviously home to several amazing artists, actors, photographers, and a host of other entertainment professionals, he is also a director, an entrepreneur, and the owner of several businesses. We love us a businessman. So, with that being said, I'd like to tell you that he also is evident about giving back to the community. He has amazing business partnerships, and he's definitely committed to bridging the gap between business and community through making connections and rendering positive outcomes on both sides. So, we'll talk about that in just a little bit. Obviously, that was a mouthful, but now that we're going to hear directly from him. So without further delay, I welcome Henry Jones III to All About the Experiences. Welcome, Henry, to All About the Experiences. You have the floor.
Well, thank you very much. I am very, very honored to be here. I cannot lie. I'm just amazed that I get this opportunity to talk to you. I mean, we go way back,
Way
so
back.
to actually be able to be featured on your platform is in itself amazing. Do have one thing. So I've lived in Riverside for a long time now, but originally born in Santa Ana. So I have to give my
Oh,
shout out to my hometown of Santa Ana,
he's
California.
like, let's make sure we're repping that correctly. I got you.
Yeah,
I
I
got
got
you.
family. They'll be like, "Wait a minute, hold
He's like,
on, you
wait
are
a minute.
not from Riverside." So roll
That's
that
like
out
saying I'm from Malibu. I got you.
there. But yeah,
Totally
but I'm
different
happy to
story.
be here. So this has been a long time coming. So I am blessed and I feel honored to be on your platform. So I'm here. I'm here.
Thank you. Well, I told you before we even started that I was going to learn something new. So there it is. I've already learned something new. So, you know what? I always like to start off, especially when I have a personal relationship with someone who is blessing my platform, is kind of talk about how we know each other. And without even saying any names or giving any credit where it does not belong, I'll say this is that Henry and I became really fast friends in an environment that we were working in a corporate setting. And, sometimes you come across people who are just absolutely, as my grandmother would say, they mirror your energy. And you absolutely do that. You are always just so forthright and willing to extend yourself to everybody. And I know that people on your team were definitely better because you were there. And I know that I was. It was always good to look up and see someone that embodied so much positivity and willing to help you at any lengths. And so for that, I want to tell you, I thank you. And I was so glad that, obviously we met, but also that I had the opportunity to work with you in a professional setting. So thank you for that.
No, I mean, going back to that corporate environment, it was great because, being new to a company and trying to be, acclimated to how things are done. So meeting you and, having that opportunity to talk to you, you were very welcoming. So you welcomed me to the organization. You helped me out a lot. And you were just one of those people that I knew I could always call on or ask questions, and you just made yourself available. So I always appreciated that about you. And you were definitely a support for me because I was trying to change perceptions and change so many dynamics. So that was sometimes met with some walls. We put some
Right.
walls up, but for the most part, I was able to navigate, and you helped me and allowed me to do that. So I was always appreciative of you for that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. We got to give each other our flowers while we can.
Oh yeah.
Life is definitely challenging, and we're faced with all sorts of obstacles. But the wonderful thing is that when you have the opportunity to engage with someone and share a space in which there are difficulties, and I'll just say this because I
Yeah.
always say this is my platform, and I say the things that I would like to say because this is our
Yeah.
space
Yeah.
and it's a safe space. I'll say that, but I think sometimes when people show up that look like you and I and have so much positive intention, and there are others that are not necessarily used to that or used to being in an environment when they have such progressive positive people
Yeah.
in play. It's kind of hard for them to navigate in that space. So I really appreciated that you emulated that, not only for me but for others that look like us in that space. So thank you for that.
No, it was a good time. It was a good time. I mean, there was, of course, like we said, challenges, but for the most part, made some great relationships, lasting relationships. As
100%.
you and I are still going after all this time,
Yes.
and we'll continue to go forward. And promote and support one another. That's what it's all about, anyway. Being a support for someone else, and if you have the means or the ability to help someone, then I think you're obligated to. You should have a self obligation to help them. So that's what's kind of been my mantra for years. It's just you see someone in need, then you help them out if you can, and if you don't have the means to help them out, then use your resources to pull people together to try to help them out. And that's what it's really all about. That's how you progress.
100%. Well, I'll say this. I think not only was that indicative of the environment that we were there, but I mean, I'm looking at you now as a business owner and entrepreneur, and let's just jump right into it. The Subtle Insight Entertainment, that is huge. I wanted, I mean, obviously you're helping artists that are in the entertainment industry, but how did you get your start there?
Honestly, it's it's an interesting story. So, back in the day, I was working a corporate job, and my cousin Richard T. Jones was acting. And as an actor, he and I would talk a lot because we kind of grew up together. So one of the things some people know, some people don't. So he and I are related on both sides of the family. So two
Double
brothers
cousin.
married two sisters. So we are double cousins. So being double cousins, it was we grew up together. So when he went into acting, actually, let me go a little further back because I will always tell this story because he set me up. So I will tell you. So I was living in Atlanta at the time, and this is when he left Tuskegee and he started to pursue acting. So he came to Atlanta, and he was trying to convince me to go back to California with him and apply for an acting school. So it was in New York. The school was in New York. So, I was working at the time, and he was like, man, we could just go. We could do this. So I'm like, all right, man, I'm gonna roll with you. So we got in the car, we drove back to California from Atlanta. We both auditioned for this school, and it was almost like fame in a sense because there's two people sitting way in the back of the theater, and you had to go on stage and perform two monologues. So we both did the audition. About a week later, we both got accepted into the school. So, the plan was to go to New York to go to school. At the time, he was still, trying to make it in the industry. So he went and found a manager, and his manager was like, hey, I really like you. I could probably get you work. So he's like, yo, man, so I'm not going to go to New York. I was like, wait, what? Like, this was the whole purpose of me coming back to California was to do this. So he decided he was not going to go to New York. And truth be told, it was just one of those things where New York was a lot. I'm like, okay, me going to New York by myself was a lot. So I was like, nah, I'm not going to go to New York either. But same time, I was supportive of what he was doing. So for me, I never really wanted to be in front of the camera. I always loved being behind the scenes, so behind the camera. That's always been my claim to fame, I guess. So as he was going down the path of acting, I would go to the sets and kind of every time I'd go to a set, I was more invested into what the producers were doing and the director was doing. So that was always why I enjoyed going to set. Met a lot of good people. And it got to a point where he had management and he decided he wanted to go in a different direction. So, mind you, again, I'm still working. One day I get a call from CBS, and this was during the time he was on Judging Amy. So I get a call from CBS asking me if Richard was available to do a celebrity softball game. I'm
For what?
like, I have no idea. Like, why are you calling me? So like, I have no idea. So I call Richard up. I'm like, yo, man, CBS just called me. They're asking about, some softball game. He's like, oh yeah, I forgot to tell you. I told him that you're my manager.
Oh,
I'm like, I'm like, wait, hold on. He's like,
you're
yeah, me
like,
and
wait
my
a
agent.
minute. When did I do?
Exactly. So he's like, me and my agent talked about it. He goes, right now I'm in transition trying to find a manager. I just need to find someone. So for right now, I just said that you're my manager. But dude, you can do this. You got this. Like,
But that's complete and utter trust. You know what I mean? And he obviously saw something in you and he trusted you with his career.
I don't know. I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe that's what it is, or he just need to put a name on the paper.
You know what?
I have no idea, but it was funny because I'm like, okay, I don't know, what you're doing right now. I said, but he's like, well, just tell CBS I'm willing to do it. He's like, just tell them that make the arrangements, talk to whoever it is that's behind the celebrity softball game, and I believe that this particular one was for Tracy McGrady. So he's like, let's just go ahead and schedule it. It was in Houston. So he's like, I'm available on these dates, just let them know. So I let them know. And it really went down like this. So after I talked to him, the lady I was speaking with on the phone was like, okay, well, we're going to send a car to pick Richard up at his house. We'll take him to the airport. We have a suite for him at, in Houston. And so should we send a car for you? Or are you going to go to the airport by yourself? I'm like, wait, what? So they're like, well, I would assume that you're going to go on this trip with you. And I'm like, of course I am, because I am his manager. So that is how it all came about. So I started, you know, quasi managing him. He was still doing a lot of stuff on his own, but I was going through scripts, talking to his agent a lot, and I really enjoyed that aspect of it, and just making connections. So going to sets, sitting with producers, really understanding what they did on a much larger scale, and really kind of soaking all that information in. Eventually, it got to a point where I wanted to kind of try this out on my own. So this was years later. Richard and I had a production company for a while that we were working together. I had another one that I was doing at one point, but eventually I got to a place, actually, after we left the company we were with, it really kind of honed in where I wanted to do something more full time and kind of really put my, throw my hat in the ring, really, and try to make something of it. So that is how I kind of got involved in all this, just being able to pull the right people together to make a good project. I love telling stories, and I think movies, films is a great way to tell a story. And I also enjoy working with individuals because you have a lot of people who are trying to make it as an actor or singer or whatever the case may be, who may not have avenues or know the right people in order to do that. I'm very honest, as you know. So I'm just very honest. I don't hold anything back. So if I work with someone, my whole thing is you have to want it more than I do. Because if I want it more than you do, then it's not going to work. So we have to go about this together. And as long as we communicate, we can make something happen. But you have to go into it 100%. And I have to trust you and you have to trust me. So that's how the artist management part of it came about. So I wanted to kind of infuse the two because I like doing the two. So like this is your platform, which is great because hey, I can pick my guests. I can kind of do the things that I want to because it's mine.
Right.
Same with me. It's
I
like I
got
can do
you.
things the way that I want to because it's mine.
And there's something to be said about relationships, whether it's it's familial or whatever the case may be. It's still at the crux of it. It has to be a level of trust there. It has to be communication and all those great components that come with that. So I think that's I think it's amazing how you got thrown into this.
I was
And
thrown. So,
you're like, wait a minute, I'm a what?
no, it would be funny. I'd be at work and you'd call like, "Yo, man, come to the set." I'm like, "Again, man, you do realize I have a job. Like,
Like,
I
I
can't
have a
just
nine to
leave my
five.
job and go hang out with you on set." He's like, "Man, you're not doing anything anyway. Just come on through."
I
Like,
love it.
yeah.
But you know what? That has to be pretty impressive to those around. I remember when I first got wind of the fact that, you were part of the Jones as we were jonesing. And I was just like, wow. But, even before I knew of your connection, I mean, you have much of those same star qualities. We all knew when you were coming in, whether it be into the corporate headquarters or if you were at our other location, that star was felt across the board. I'll just say that. So there's something about that, and there's also something to be said about the way that you interact with so many different people and able to navigate those relationships. Which I would imagine being in Hollywood and managing artists and actors, and I mean, you run the gamut, is in the way of just entertainment professionals. So how do you manage like personalities wise, if you will?
I guess that is one of my attributes is communication. So I'm able to kind of come to people where they are. And first off, you just have to listen. So excuse me, being able to listen to people and kind of get an idea of what they're looking to do, what they're looking to accomplish, and really sitting down and talking to them about what's realistic, what's achievable, what's attainable, putting together some goals, like when do we want to accomplish this, and then kind of put together a plan. So I think planning is really key to everything. But because I represent actors, singer, a rapper, so I'm a hip hop artist. So I'm working with hip hop artists now as well, and I have a photographer that I work closely with. I don't necessarily manage anymore, but he and I work closely together. So just being able to work in different avenues and understand that there's opportunity everywhere. You just have to be able to kind of become laser focused and figure out exactly what you want to do, and then making connections. There's nothing that's out of reach. I don't think that there's nothing that I can accomplish if I really put my mind to it. And I work with people who have that same kind of mindset. From Sean to Jonathan Joss to just different individuals who sit there and say, okay, this is what I want to do. And it may seem crazy right now, but we just take steps. We continue to take steps and we go forward. As long as we don't go backwards, we keep taking steps forward, we're making progress. And I always tell people, as long as you seek perfection, you'll never be mediocre. So I always seek
Ooh, that needs to be on
perfection.
a t-shirt. Literally, that needs to be on a t-shirt. You mentioned some of the artists and entertainment professionals that are on your roster. So let's kind of talk about that, because I believe definitely that's what makes up subtle insight, right?
Yes. Well, there's Jonathan Joss. I need to call him, but Jonathan Joss is a great actor. He was in True Grit. He was in Magnificent Seven. A lot of people still remember him when he played um, John Redcorn. So on King of the Hill, which he is reprising that role. So Hulu's doing a remake of that,
Awesome.
or not a remake, but a reboot of the show. So he's still part of that show. Last scene was in Tulsa King. So he's a great actor. He's even more so, he's just a great person. So I enjoy Jonathan a lot. And we have a mutual respect for one another. And how he came about was just actually through family. A family member was talking to him through about something completely different. And he mentioned that I had a management company. He was looking for management. And when he called me, honestly, I tried to talk him out of it. So I was like, yo, man, I
This
said,
is your destiny. I don't know if you realize this at this point.
I guess so, because I honestly tried to talk him out of it. And, it's like, look, where you are right now, I said, because I was still in the kind of infancy of the company. So I wasn't as large as I wanted to be, or, so it's still kind of making connections. So I didn't want to hinder his career. So I was like, look, you may be at a level right now where I may not be the right person for you. But he appreciated the fact that I was honest. So he's like, look, man, he goes, one thing that I enjoyed about this conversation is your honesty. He's like, and that's hard to come by in this industry. He's like, so why not just see? Let's just take a shot and we'll just see what happens. And if it happens and we make it work, then great. And if not, then no harm, no foul. So that's how that came about with Jonathan. Corey Jones is actually a cousin of mine, but he's a great actor. He's from, he lived from California, he moved to Atlanta for a while, did a few projects while he was there, and then him and his family decided to move back to California. But he is great. I mean, I will tell you right now, he has star quality written all over him. I have nothing but faith in him. So Corey Jones, be on the lookout for him because he's going to do some big things this year. I know it. He knows it, and he's just very hardworking. And person was on your platform already with Sean Tuck. So Sean is doing amazing. Actually, we go back to Atlanta, and next week we go back to Atlanta to continue recording on his project, and he's working with a lot of she's worked with a Grammy Award winning producer, a Grammy Award nominated producer. So for him to come out of the gates and work with all these amazing producers, and the production company that he actually signed with is Dreams and Legacies. So they brought just a wealth of knowledge and producers along for the ride, and we're just making a great album. I will tell you, the last time we were in Atlanta, we did 5 songs.
Wow.
5 songs. We have, in my opinion, 3 smash hits and 2 great songs. So we're putting in some work. So he's definitely putting in a lot of work. And we're about to actually shoot his next music video next month, actually in October. And
That's pretty
then
amazing.
have one new to the roster, which is so he and I are still talking, but Cadillac Cass is from Orange County, and he is a hip hop artist. Actually has a pretty big following. So he and I have been talking the last few days, and I'll probably talk to him again today. So, but yeah, so he's someone that's more than likely going to be added to the roster as well. I'm a true believer in his talent, and he just wants to do big things. So he believes I can take him there, and we're gonna make a run for it. See what happens.
I love that. I mean, it's a mutual, you both have to believe in it. You have to believe in their talent and they have to believe in your management. One of the things that I can say based on the conversation that I had with Sean was that, he is a lover of music. He's a lover of sports. He is a family man and he wants to sustain his family. I know. But one of the things is, I think we talked about, I can't remember if it was during the filming of the podcast or if it was before, but he was talking about just getting back to good R&B music
Yeah.
and feel good music. And obviously that has taken off because if I'm not mistaken, Grateful was picked up and licensed by the NFL, correct?
Yes, actually it was. So that was a process. And it was funny because when I first he made Grateful, and the first time I heard Grateful, and I don't know if this is the whole, you speak things into existence,
Right.
because the first time that I heard it, I was like, we have to get this to the NFL. That was my first thought. Where it came from, but that was my first thought was NFL. And from then on, I worked on getting it to the NFL. So it took me probably 4 months before I finally got the email from the NFL saying that it was accepted and they were going to feature it. So they featured it in their Inspired Change campaign. So there was I want to say it was the True, I actually have it, the Free Minds Book Club, Free Minds Book Club. So it was featured in that promo, and they actually aired it on their platform the first day of the NFL draft. So that was kind of huge too. So they've been
Incredible.
great. I'm working right now to try to get the song played at one of the Rams games. So that's my next big project to get that done. And from there to a lot more stadiums. So, but I'm focused on the Rams because I'm a Rams season ticket holder. Go to the games.
Look,
So,
you saw me, I was like, oh,
you know, me and Richard, that's a thing. So, we get together, my brother-in-laws, we all have tickets, so we go watch the games together. So it's more family time than anything else because
I
we
got
love
you.
football, but it's family time.
Well, I'll be there October 1st for the Chargers Raiders game. And you already know I'm a Raiders girl
I know.
myself. So
I
yeah,
know.
I will- you're like, okay, pipe down, Cheryl, pipe down.
Hey,
Well,
you
I
guys may
think
be all right this year. You may be all right this year.
I look, there's always hope, right? I would say that there's always hope. And I will definitely be listening. I mean, I go to SoFi, not just for, obviously Chargers, they vacated San Diego and they're up there where you are. But we also go up there for the Rams Chargers game, which is that's a showdown.
Yeah.
Kind of reminds me of Battle of the Bay when the Raiders and the 49ers used to play each other. So
Oh yeah.
yeah, pretty exceptional. Let me ask you this, just because, I mean, you have so much influence when it comes to your artists and other entertainment professionals that are on the roster. What is it that you hear or you see that just lets you know this person has what it takes? And we know that the entertainment industry is not always the most welcoming. So, what is it that you see in these new hungry artists that you're just like, okay, I got to bring you
Yeah.
on. I want to manage you and I want to get you to that next level?
I am that's honestly it's a hard question for me because I tried to get out of managing at one point. I was
That's been the
done.
theme here. I might have to theme this is how I don't want to manage, but it keeps thrown at me.
Because I managed before, and one thing about artists, like most artists, everything they do, they believe is amazing, which I get. But sometimes you have to be the person to tell them, that one's not amazing. It's like it's not that great. You may think so, but it's really not. So having those discussions and trying to direct someone into doing something and them not wanting to do it and not seeing the picture that you're seeing. So sometimes, as a manager, sometimes you disagree with your artist. It's still your job to kind of explain your position, and allow them to do what they want to do because as a manager, that's what you do, but you still want to explain your position. So I had so many times where it was just not working out. My artist not wanting to do what I'm telling, like, this is how we can become successful. I got to a place where I'm like, I don't really want to do this anymore. So I stopped. Sean, I heard one of his songs that he put out on social media. So I knew Sean was getting into music, but I really wasn't, I didn't hear a lot of his stuff. And then one day I was on social media and I heard a song, which was my vibe song. And when I
Mm.
heard my vibe song, I'm like, okay, he's talented. Like when you mentioned you hear something, I heard something in him with his delivery, the flow of the song, just the way that he put the lyrics together and how he told that story, and just the cadence that he used. And sometimes, we talk about music, and from a production standpoint, it's being able to find a pocket of music and writing that pocket so you're not too loud, you're not too soft, but you just kind of ride the beat to the point that your voice becomes its own instrument in the song. So that's hard to do for some artists. They just rap or they just sing, but they don't find that soft spot in the song. And Sean found it so effortlessly that I was like, hey, you have talent. So I just reached out to him. I'm like, oh man, I love the song. And like I always do, is like, if you ever need any help with anything, I don't want to take over anything, but if you need any help, just let me know because I want to make sure no one takes advantage of you. I just want to make sure that you stay committed to this because I believe you have a future in it, but don't let anyone take advantage of what you're doing. So reach out to me. If you have questions, just let me know. And that's kind of how our relationship evolved to eventually I became his manager. For Kaz, I heard him. A friend of mine sent me his music. Actually, one of the I guess owners of Dreams and Legacies, the production company, he knows Cass. So he was like, hey, I'm going to send you some music. And I heard it and I was like, the same kind of feeling I got from Sean, I got from Cass. It's the way that he feels music and completely different from what Sean does, but very similar in his own right of how he puts songs together. And the subject matter that he talks about is, it's more street, so to speak. It's Sean's R&B. This is true hip hop rap. More street, but he raps about things that people are familiar with. Like he tells stories and stories that you can kind of relate to. But at the same token, he's very, very outspoken as far as wanting to make a difference and wanting to impact people's lives in a positive way. So that's one of the things that drew me to him was how I don't know how positive he is about the outlook and how much he wants to change and bring people together. So I need to know if I work with you, I need to know that your music is not only good, but you're also a good person, that you're trying to do good things. Because if you're not making, if you're not creating beauty, if you're not creating art, if you're not positive in some kind of way, then you're not really adding anything to the narrative of what music is. So if you're not able to do that, then I can't really work with you.
That makes so much sense because, more often than not, when we look, you see your favorite artist and you have songs and they transport you to, a time and space when you first heard the song. It's
Yeah.
one of those kind of transformative things that's universal, regardless of if you speak the language or not. I think even deaf people can feel the beat and the vibe and all that. But also, I have to kind of touch on this is that when you're managing artists, you're managing not just their career in a sense, but because we know that we live everything through social media now. A lot of times artists are first known via social media before you ever hear them on the radio or, see a video or anything like that. So I went, and I want to say it was last year, to Detroit, and I got a chance to go to Motown, and I was hearing all the stories of Berry Gordy and how he used to manage all of these artists, and that he would put them through this intensive training about, basically how to do interviews, how to be poised, how to, manage their money. And he also made them work. They had 9 to 5s too, and still had that work ethic as far as putting into their talent and their passion for music. Do you embody any of those type of Berry Gordy tactics, qualities, or whatever you want to call it, when it comes to managing your artists as well?
I do because, how I look at it is your artist, I represent my artist represent me. So for me, it's all about integrity with me. I've always come from a place of integrity. So whatever I do, I want to make sure that I'm doing the right thing. I'm not, I've had artists who come to me and they're currently working with someone else, or they're planning on leaving someone else. And I've told them, like, look, I'm not even going to have this discussion with you right now because you're currently attached to someone. If you leave that person, then you and I can have a conversation. But until that happens, we can't have a conversation because I don't want anyone to assume that, I'm trying to steal from it. So
Mm.
it's really important to me to kind of keep that integrity going. And when it comes to my artists, if they're posting, so sometimes I post on Sean's behalf, sometimes Sean posts on his behalf, but we talk about what we're posting. But if he posts something, I'm very aware and I'm like, hey, just make sure, understand that social media, you can't walk away from it. Whatever you put out there, someone will find, and understand that, especially now in this environment that we live in today. And since cancel culture is so prevalent, I'm telling him,
Right.
like, just be mindful of what you put out there. I still want you to be authentic. I still want you to be you, but I want you to be aware because regardless of what happens, someone's waiting for you to mess up.
Mhm.
That is their sole purpose, is waiting for you to do something that's going to mess up that they can bring to the forefront. And as long as we can kind of stay away from those gray areas, and we can still be ourselves, but we could still say the same message, just how we say it's important. So let's talk about it. Let's have a discussion. Let's talk about how it's going to be perceived. But at the same time, I never want you to not feel like you're yourself, because that's important too. So Sean is very big on community. He's very big on giving back. And sometimes he'll hear something that, as anyone else, it may irk you a little bit and you want to respond. And I'm saying, okay, well, before you respond, let's think about how we're going to respond. Let's talk about it. So that's important to me. So when it comes to artists, I really want to make sure that they're making the right decisions, not only for them, but for their future, and understand that if your sole purpose is to put yourself in a position, and Sean and I talked about a lot, it's like, you asked me a few years ago when I first got into industry, I wanted to make a lot of money. I wanted to be rich. I
Told
wanted
me
to buy
that.
a
Yeah.
plane. I wanted to buy a plane. People were talking about cars. I'm like, I want to buy a plane. I was like, that was me. You ask me now, it's just, I want to be happy. Like,
Mm.
happiness trumps money for me right now. So I want to be happy. I want to be able to sleep at night, and I want to be able to still make money where I don't have to worry about, check my account to make sure that I have funds in there to cover what I want to purchase. I want to be able to go to a store and just buy what I want to buy. But for the most part, I want to be able to look someone in the eyes and say, okay, at the end of the day, I know I did the right thing. That's important to me. So with my artists, I want them to kind of have that same kind of mindset of, I want to make money, but I want to make money the right way. And I never want to look down upon someone because, for Sean, for Kaz, I'm sure as well, doing music, it's it seems like a large industry, but it's not. It's really small. Look, a lot
Truly.
of the actors, especially from an acting standpoint, a lot of actors know one another, because it's a very small, unique group of people. So what's going on within the industry, and what projects people are working on, but you also know who they are behind the scenes as
Mhm.
well. So there's a lot of people that I've met over the years that you see them on screen, you're like, oh, they're amazing. Off screen, they're very shy. They're not as nice as you may think or believe. But it's the image that they portray. I want to work with people who are genuine through and through. Like, if you see me one day and you see me a week from now, I'm still going to be the same person. If you ask me for an autograph today, you ask me for an autograph 8 weeks from now, if I sign it then, I still want to sign it now. I never want to get to a place that I forget who I am and forget where I came from. So that's important to me.
Well, I definitely will say this. You're definitely very grounded. I know this just from my own personal experience with you and having worked together, and how you show up is very authentic. And beyond that, you have a general love for people and wanting to see people succeed. And we saw that when we worked together as well. I don't think there was anything that someone couldn't come to you and you wouldn't try to find a solution for them, or find something that worked beneficial, even if that meant moving them to a different department or something like that. So it sounds like those same qualities that I came to know and love are still in existence, and you're using as you manage and are there for your artists. And that speaks volumes, because I know it can be a cutthroat industry, but when you have somebody that you can trust and has your back, I'm sure that that puts their minds at ease, and also their families. Let me ask you this, just kind of switching up a little bit. Um, what inspires you to not only take on someone else's career and put them on this amazing trajectory towards fame and maybe fortune, and just really embodying the things that they love to do, whether it's singing, acting, producing, whatever it is. What inspires you to want to do that? I mean, other than the fact that you have a great heart, what is it that made you decide, and the fact that you keep getting thrown into it, but you know what I mean? Like, there
Yeah.
has to be something within you that inspires you to stay this course.
Honestly, it's a great question, by the way. Since I haven't really thought about it too much, but it's a great question. Um, I have to go, honestly, I have to go back to high school. So in high school, I wanted to play. So I went to Mater Dei High School in Orange County. So we are rated number one in football right now. So go Monarchs. So,
Go Monarchs.
so I went to Mater Dei, and I was going out for football, and something happened. So, long story short, wasn't able to, try out for the team because I had to go out of town for a family thing. So when I got back, I was not able to continue to try out for the team. So I had to kind of shift directions to something else. And someone mentioned, you know, why not go out for a play? I was like, nah, like, don't really want to do a play. But they're like, I think you'd be really good. And at the time, they were doing the play Fame. And it was funny because it was like, you know, Leroy. And I
I
was
was
like,
going to say, were you going to be Leroy?
but the reason I did Leroy was hilarious because Leroy, in my opinion, was a lot like me because he's like, I don't wear tights. Like there's certain things that he was like, I'm not doing. So, and when they said do the play and they're doing Fame, my first thing was, I'm not wearing any tights. Like I'm not doing that. So it was kind of funny that it kind of came about. So I tried out for the play and I got the play. And I remember this like yesterday. It was at the time. So during rehearsals, everything, the day of the play, I was not nervous, not one bit. Like it was just another day. It didn't even hit me at all. But the director of the play at the time, Miss Seeley, who was our drama teacher, she decided she was going to, during rehearsals, she was like, hey, I think this song, Body Electric, would work a lot better if Leroy sang it. I was like, wait, hold up. Leroy does not sing. She's like, and Henry does not sing. Like, so it's like Leroy doesn't sing, Henry doesn't sing. That's not going to work. But she was adamant about doing this, so she threw it in the play. And I remember like the whole night of the play, the whole performance, I was not, I was fine. The last scene was when he had to sing. So I was sitting there behind the stage, and as I'm walking out, I'm like, damn it, I'm about to sing like in front of all these people. And that's when it hit me, was like I was terrified. And there was one scene in particular at the very end of the play, and All the other times they were doing it, it was just me, I guess, saying the lines and I was saying the lines. But for some reason that night, I just, I guess, got lost in the character and I became that character. And so having the scene was like just having a real conversation with someone. And afterwards, it was, we got a lot of praise for that and a lot of people really liked it. So that kind of got me into the acting realm. But the next play we did was The Crucible.
Mm.
The person that I played in The Crucible didn't have a lot of lines. So I didn't have a lot of speaking parts. So a lot of times I would just sit in the audience and watch the play from the audience. And one day we had a student who got sick. So our teacher at the time needed to take care of him. She's like, can we just watch the play and just watch? And as I'm watching the play, I just looked at it. I was like, there's certain scenes that could work so much better if we shot it, if we, they came out from over here. So in my mind, I stopped being an actor and I started being a producer and I started being a director. And afterwards, I remember talking to someone's sister or brother came to me afterwards and they asked for an autograph. And I remember signing the autograph. And my teacher at that point, she said words to me that I never forgot. She was like, remember this moment. She's like, because this is what you were destined to do. And I
Wow.
remembered that from way back when, and I've always carried that with me. So for her to recognize that in me, and I tried to avoid it. I tried to do different things, but for some reason, I look at entertainment industry as a mob. No matter how many times I try to get out, they always pull me back in. So, and because she recognized that in me a long time ago, I always tend to recognize that in other people. So if I'm talking to someone and they have a talent, Marlon Taylor, I have to throw him out. He's a photographer, and he and I used to work together in corporate. And he was taking pictures, and I would look at his pictures that he would shoot of other people, and he was still playing with it. He was, not. It was not a serious art or profession for him at the time. And then one day he and I were talking. I was like, you're really good at this, right?" He's like, "Man, I appreciate it." I'm like, "No, I mean, like, you're really, really good at this." I said, "This is something that you can pursue, and don't sell yourself short." I'm like, don't sell yourself short. You're actually good at this. You can charge what other people are charging. Look at your work, value who you are and what your profession is and how good you are. And people will recognize it, but you have to recognize it in yourself first. And he started to do bigger things. He was on the Knot. He's won some awards, and he and I still talk a lot, but he always goes back to those moments of, man, you were the first person that believed in me. You were the first person that kind of pushed me into this. And I remember being the first, my teacher was the first person that pushed me into this. So that's what I look for. That's what inspires me is finding someone that I see talent in them, but I don't think they realize how good they are. So that's what inspires me wanting to work with them.
I love that you said that because more often than not, and even for me, starting this platform, I'll never forget. I've always been told that I was like a little baby Oprah amongst my friends, and and I was just like, okay. And I used to play in the mirror with my brush and interview and things, but sometimes life it does imitate art, as they say. And I'll never forget during the pandemic, it was like it was almost like therapy for me in a sense, because we were all going through something and we were all going through it collectively, but still had our own experiences. And it was coming up on the anniversary of my mom's death, and so I launched the podcast on Juneteenth. But also it was her birthday, and I was just like, I wanted to take something that has ultimately changed my whole life. Like, when you lose a parent, and especially for me, when I lost my mom, it just changed me. In fact, I often reflect back and say, food didn't taste the same, or things that I used to enjoy didn't feel the same anymore. And so I was seeking to find joy in things again. I was also seeking to find an outlet to share what I was feeling, because I'm very open, I'm very talkative. You get what you get. I'm consistent when it comes to that. But I say all that to say, is having this platform definitely gave me an outlet. And when I first started researching, I was just like, well, how do you start a podcast? So, I went to the University of Google and YouTube and I got my degree. Okay. And so here we are. But with that being said, it's like I'm here, I'm able to connect with so many amazing people, known and unknown. And I feel like it is the catalyst for me discovering more about myself through other people's experiences. But it also is that thing that maybe you and I both said something today that's going to resonate with someone else and inspire them to pursue their dreams or make them think about something that they hadn't thought about. Maybe, like you keep saying, I can't sing. I can't sing at all. I'm the only one in my family that cannot sing. But for some reason, people will give me something. This is not alcohol, it's water, but they'll give me alcohol and say, why don't you try to sing this song? And there's something about that, getting liquid encouragement and your
Yeah.
friends and everyone, and you'll get up and next thing you know, I'm singing Secret Levelers at the top of my you know what I mean? I'm like,
Yeah,
what
I
is
know what you
happening?
mean. I know what you mean.
So it's so I segue into this. It's like obviously you have the knack and the gift for recognizing someone's talents and pushing them and putting them in the forefront and helping them hone their craft and to get to that level of stardom if that's what they're seeking. But from a business perspective, because obviously business is at the crux of everything. I don't care what you're doing. If you want to put some money behind it or get some money behind it, there's always that business component. What advice would you give to someone who is obviously coming in to the entertainment industry, whether they're a singer, an actor, or what have you? What advice would you give them as far as getting their footing and getting that support? And we know, and when I say support, not just in the way of management, but also in funding, because I mean, it costs money, I mean, to do all of these things. I'm certain, right?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
it does. Um, Honestly, it's a while back. My uncle's friend, and he and I were talking because I was looking for an investor into the company, and it was early on when I was about to start the company, and he said something that stuck with me. He's like, if you go into business, he's like, do what you can on your own. He's like, invest as much as your money as you can into this. He's like, before you get an investor, he's like, because the one thing you don't want to do is bring it on an investor and not have, have to ask to do things in your own company. He's like, because once you get an investor, you're also giving up equity. You're giving up part of your company because they're putting money into it, so they're able to make decisions, which I understood. So, and he said, it's best. He goes, I would still avoid bank loans and all that stuff. He's like, but if you have to get anything, go for a bank loan. He's like, but investors, be wary of them unless you're bringing someone on that you believe in, you have a good working relationship, and just make sure everything's written down and you have a contract that spells out everything. So I've always took that with me, and I've never got an investor. I've sought investors for a while, and I'm not opposed to an investor, but it would have to be someone that really believes in the project and understands, the industry as a whole. But I also need an out clause. So I need to be able to buy you out. So we have to have something in there where it's like I can write you a check after so long, and now the company fully becomes mine again because it's my company. And I don't want to have to ask to do things because sometimes especially in business, and we can go back to where you and I worked in the corporate world, is sometimes you want to make decisions and you see things happening, but you don't have a say so in it. So you just kind of go along with the ride and you end up in a place that you knew you're going to end up and no one else saw it but you. So
Right.
I've been in that situation a few times. So I was like, I do not want to do this with my company. So for someone starting out, I'm like, you have to be willing to invest your own money and start small. A lot of people get into the business and they want to be that want to be Drake tomorrow. Okay, you do understand he started at Degrassi, right? Like
He said
he
he started
started
at the
somewhere.
bottom, now we're here.
Exactly. That's where he started. All the people that you look up to all have a story. They all have a backstory of where they started. So understand that your backstory is now. Like everything that you're doing right now is propelling you to where you're trying to go. So invest your own money. If you need photos, go find, you have a camera, someone that can take some pictures. It's your camera. Take a lot of them till you find one that you like. It's like you don't have to spend a lot of money to do a lot of things in the very beginning, but also understand that people are going to come to you when they recognize your talent and are going to try to exploit you and exploit you for your talent. So, I remember talking to a young lady who was trying to get into modeling, and this modeling agency, well, supposedly agency approached her. It was like, hey, you can get pictures and it's only going to charge you this much. And I told them, like, okay, if they want you, why are they charging you to do something?
Right.
Don't pay. You're not paying. It's like if they want you, they want you because of your talent. So it's an investment for them. You still invest in yourself, but it's an investment for them. So they should not come to you and ask you to put all this money into a career that they're saying they're going to manage or work with. And someone told Richard and I a long time ago too, and I believe it was his first manager. He's like, you don't need a manager until you have something to manage. So,
Say that again.
so, but it is, and I didn't think about it, but I've worked with people like, okay, I want a manager. This young woman got mad at me once because she wanted me to manage her, and I was like, look, I said, there's no need for me to manage you right now. I said, I will give you free advice. I will help you out in your career, but there's no real reason for me to manage you right now. But there's
Right.
some things that you could do right now to kind of help you get further along where you will need a manager. And she was mad because I wouldn't manage her. I'm like, okay, well, just be honest, like 10% of nothing is nothing. like so, so
Then there's that. Yeah.
so it's like I'll sit there, there's nothing right now. It's like you don't have anything, you're still starting out. Start doing something, because again, I may not be the manager that you want later on once you start doing things, but at least put yourself in a position that you have followers, you have a following, you have something that you can show people. Because at the time she didn't have a reel, she hadn't been, I think she'd been in one play, so she hadn't done a lot. I'm like, look, I don't want to exploit you. I don't
What
want
are
to
we
take advantage.
managing here?
So let's just work on your craft a little bit more, and then we'll talk later, if need be, or maybe not. But do something. So it's really about you having to understand that this is a business. When I first started managing, I had a girls group in Atlanta years ago. And one of the things that we always did is there was a book at the time, well, it's still there, but it was Everything You Need to Know About the Music Business. I would tell everyone, before I manage you need to read that book because you need to understand that it's a business first. And if you know the business, then you could never say that I took advantage of you, because you know the business just as well as I do. Understand it's a business. So get into it, know the business aspect of it, so people can't take advantage of you. Be willing to invest your own money into your career, and also be have a plan. I think that's a major thing too. Have a plan and set short-term and long-term goals. And they have to be realistic goals. You can't sit there and say, I want to sell 1 million albums or get 1 million followers by next March. Okay,
Right.
that takes time. So it's like, so realistic goals, and put that time and work and that effort in, and then network. This
That
is
is
it.
such an underrated concept. And let me tell you,
Yes.
I live it on a daily basis in my 9 to 5. I live it as part of all about the experiences. And it's just, and I mean, just in your personal life, it's
Yeah.
about, they always say it's all in who you know, right?
Yeah.
So with that being said, my little bit of advice that I can say when it comes to networking is definitely lead. My grandmother would always say, lead with a soft front and a strong back. So, when you go into a room, even if you don't understand everything that's being discussed or talked about, it's okay to be quiet and listen and learn.
Yeah.
And then also, when you want to know something, be very how can I say this? Be very strong in asking questions, but don't be annoying. And because there are those. And
Absolutely.
then don't be afraid to I always say, don't be afraid to ask a question.
Yeah.
I mean, we used to hear that in school all the time. And the
Mhm.
reason being is because you can learn so much. And maybe, everybody always wants to feel like they've taught someone something.
Yeah.
So it's a win-win situation. I'm asking you a question, you're answering it, I'm better for it. And, you
Yeah.
move, you move forward in that
Oh,
direction.
I would say it's, nowadays it's networking. It's who you know and how you know them. So it's who you know, how you know them, and then from the same. I agree with you 100%. It's network, and I I'm a quote person. I love quotes, and I remember the one that said, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. That took
That
me a
part.
while to understand that because I would be in rooms and a lot of times I'm like, okay, I'm not learning anything, but I continued to stay in that room, but I was not growing. So I had to actually go into other rooms where people knew a lot more than I did. And before I felt like intimidated by going into these rooms because I knew I didn't know as much. But like you said, I walked out of that room knowing so much more than I knew before I went in. So I'm all about going and talking to people who know a lot more than I do because that's the only way that I can gain more information. Um, because that's what it's about. There's a quote, and I can't remember the name of it, which is going to be sad because it's my favorite quote. I use it all the time, but it's don't confuse motion with progress. A rocking horse is in motion, but it doesn't go anywhere.
Mm,
I love that quote because a lot of times that's what we're in. We're just in motion, and we think that we're moving, but we're not. We're just going back and forth. We're just rocking. That's all we're doing. But you're not taking any steps forward. So get out of the rocking horse and take a step. Like you gotta take steps.
I
Move.
have a conversation with my son later. I'm going to use that.
I love quotes. I love quotes.
Well, they're powerful
Yeah.
because in the moment that they're said or thought of or shared, it's relatable obviously to that situation or experience, but also you can apply it to so many other situations. One of the things that obviously we've talked about, your start in the industry, whether you wanted to accept it or not, but um, we know that the entertainment industry can be a little bit challenging and you have to have a tough skin. And, I like to think that I am open to receiving constructive criticism, which I am. I mean,
Yeah.
I work as an executive assistant and a corporate events manager. And so, even when people pose certain things to me and I'm like, oh, okay, I see your vision. They're like, that was not it. And I'm like, oh, okay, back to the drawing board. I see your vision. And they're like, almost. And I have to be willing, even though I may have done something that's tried and true and I execute it what I think is flawlessly, you have to be open to understand that people may see something different or have a completely different vision. And it sounds like you navigate this space by being very transparent and open. But can you tell us about a time, and no names need to be said, but where you had to manage someone? It doesn't necessarily have to be an artist because we know you and I worked in the same space before and we know what that was like. Where you had to manage someone's expectations of how they showed up, whether it was entertainment or corporate, setting, how they had to perhaps get a thicker skin.
I actually have a good one.
Okay.
um, so years ago, I worked for a company and I was director of operations there. So I remember going into work, and as I'm walking through the door, this employee comes up to me. He's like, "Oh, you missed it." One of the supervisors and an employee. I'm not going to use names, even though they know who they are. um, but there was like, they got into a big argument on the floor and it got real ugly. They were yelling. I'm like, wait, what happened? They're like, yeah. So I'm like, okay, hold on. So I walk over to the supervisor. I'm like, yo, man, come to my office. Go get the employee. Come into my office. He's like, so as I'm walking to my office, still other people are like, oh, did you hear what happened? Did you hear what? So everyone's talking about what happened on the floor. So I go into my office. I'm like, okay, explain to me what happened. And for a moment, I think they both forgot that I was in the room because they just started yelling at each other. So it was just yelling at each other. So I'm sitting there, I'm just listening, I'm not saying anything. And I'm like, okay. So finally, I'm like, okay, stop. I said, stop. So I go to the employee. I'm like, okay, I'm writing you up for insubordination. It's like, but I said, this is not a conversation. This is not up for debate. I'm writing you up for insubordination. I need you to go back to your desk, but that's where we are. And to the supervisor, I'm like, okay, now I need you. I go, who was here today? So he's like, oh, I'm glad you did that because it needed to happen. He's like, you can ask this supervisor and this supervisor. So he's naming the supervisors who were there who witnessed it. So I'm like, okay, great. Do me a favor, go bring them all in my office. So they all come in my office and they're sitting there like, hey man, I'm like, so you guys are all here? And I'm like, yeah, it was crazy. They were yelling and screaming. I'm like, okay. I'm like, so I'm writing all of you up. Like, what? I'm like, because you allowed that to happen on my floor. It's like, I go, because you need to understand. I go, well, what you did today is you all lost credibility. I said, in front of employees. I go, because now what's going to happen? They're not going to come to you with problems. They're going to bypass you and come to me because you no longer have credibility, because you can't solve problems and it takes me to solve problems. I'm like, I bring you guys in because I need you to figure out how to solve these problems so they don't get to this point. I go, at any point, someone should have stopped that conversation from happening, pulled them into an office, and had a conversation behind closed doors. But because you had it in open forum, I have to write all of you up. I said, and this is the lesson. I go, so now not only do I have to do this now I have to go and have a meeting with everyone, and I have to reassure them that you guys are in charge. So I brought in everyone. We had a company meeting, and I was like, look, what happened today was unfortunate what happened today. I said, but I need you to understand that these are my supervisors. And before you come to me, you have to go to them because there is a chain of command. No matter how you think of it, no matter how it looks, this is what the process is, because it's a process. So in that situation was, they had to have thick skin. Some of them didn't think they should have been written up. Some of them understood why they were being written up. And the ones who didn't think, they came and addressed that with me later on. I was like, okay, this write up still stands. I appreciate your
It's not going
opinion.
anywhere.
Like, appreciate your opinion, but it still stands. You're still being written up. But it was a situation where, I think how you're portrayed is important and how people view you is important. And so I'm okay. I'm the same way. Constructive feedback, criticism, I will take that all day. And it's just a discussion. It's just room for growth. That's how I see it.
I think that's so cool. Well, I want to switch gears a little bit because I mean, we've talked about having thick skin and insubordination and all these different things, but I want to talk about fun projects that you have coming up. And a
Okay.
little birdie, which is you, told me that you have something coming up on October 7th.
Yes. So honestly, you kind of spawned this, so I have to give you your flowers. So one of the members, Toya, Toya, Red, Dre, they make up Dreams and Legacies. So Toya watched the interview that you did with Sean, and afterwards, she reached out to Dre and she was talking to him and mentioning how, Sean really loved football and how he always incorporates that into his interviews and how that's such a big part of who he is. So she's like, why don't we do a pull-up video, but we just, you know, angle it around football? Like, why don't we have a football theme? And I was like, actually, that's a great idea. So we're like, that's actually a really good idea. So in talking through it, I was like, okay, well, has to be flag football because we need to see his face. Like, so
That
flag
part.
football. So I go, but I love the idea. And as we talked through it more, I'm like, okay, how can, I had to put on my whole managerial marketing hat in conjunction with them. Like, how do we make this bigger than, what it is right now? So had the idea of, okay, well, what if we tie this to a charitable organization or a foundation? And I go, so let's be able to raise proceeds by this and be able to give money to a foundation. So why not, the way that we bring more people into it, why don't we make this a celebrity flag football game and bring some celebrities into the mix? And
Okay.
then we can actually go out and get some corporate sponsors, get some media coverage, and we can just kind of do it real big and just bring people along, and then the funds and proceeds, because everyone likes to feel good about what they've done. So from an entertainment standpoint, the strike is going on right now, not a lot's going on right now, so let's come together and do something fun, but we'll also be able to raise some money and give to this charitable organization. So the next part of that was, okay, which charitable organization should we find to donate funds to? So I talked to my cousin, Martina Sellers, who has Marcel Wellness Center. So I was talking to him because he is a nonprofit and works more into the space of mental health. So talking to him, he mentioned that he just did a project with Greg Bell, who used to play for, he was drafted by the Buffalo Bills, played for the Rams, and he played for the LA Raiders at the time. So back in the day, he was a running back. So he has a foundation called Athletes for Life. And what my cousin did, he talked to student athletes, and the conversation was centered around mental health. So those were all things that Sean's real big on in mental health and being an athlete. And he talked about that with me on separate occasions, just, the expectations that come with being an athlete, and if you are great at what your craft is, and the expectations that fall upon you and how you kind of manage that in the mental health aspect. So we thought that would be a perfect foundation to partner with. So we partnered with Athletes for Life. So we're going to do this event. It's going to be a celebrity event. It's going to be held in at Cajon High School in San Bernardino. So I'm actually supposed to go there Friday, look at the field. I have some really good cinematographers. So it's going to be a really, really nice event. And we're going to shoot the video, have a flag football game, have some vendors, the whole nine, hopefully raise a bunch of money that we can donate portion of that to Athletes for Life and their foundation, and also have some funds that we can give to the school itself. So we're really trying to do a lot of things that are gonna, and we want to make it an annual event. So we really want to make this an annual event. So we can do it every year, and every year we just get bigger and bigger, and we keep giving back to the community, because that's important to me. It's important to Dream the Legacy. It's important to Sean. So we just want to make sure that it's interesting because Sean's not a huge name yet, but I keep telling him after this event he'll be a huge name after the event,
You
because we're going to
definitely
bring a
will
lot of
be.
awareness and a lot of attention to
Yes.
the foundation, and a lot of attention to you. And it's just, I'm really happy about the way that it's coming about, and just the people that we're working with to make this happen. They're all positive, and we're all trying to do something great for the community. So I'm enjoying it so far.
That's phenomenal. Well, I will keep my ear to the ground, and definitely when you are ready to do promos, I am here. I would love to use my platform for that. And I mean, obviously, we heard it here first. So October 7th,
Yes.
and we'll have more details to come. I think that you said that tickets would be available through Eventbrite,
Yeah,
if
so
that's correct.
we're gonna have tickets available. So once I have all that, I will definitely let you know. And we'll have a website, the whole nine, where people can go, or we'll have something. We're still in that stage right now. So we have another meeting later on this week, and then another one on Saturday. So we're putting everything together, but we will have a way for people to purchase tickets for sure.
Fantastic. Well, I have to tell you, I think I said this maybe off camera and during the filming right now, but I have learned something new about you that I didn't already know. And the one thing that has remained consistent is how you show up for people. And when I say that, you are just one of those people that everybody should know, number one, but that goes above and beyond to make sure that someone gets to that next level, whether that is in a personal journey that they have of theirs, if it's their career, or just being a good friend and giving good advice. Cause I know I've borne, witness to that in my own right when it comes to you. And we talked about giving flowers, and I want to give you yours. Henry, you are an exceptional human being. You are a connector of people, and you're just all things good and successful. And I wish you nothing but continued success, because I said this, I think it was during Sean's episode, as well as during Richard's. You have the Midas touch, my friend. So when you put your name and your backing to something, it's always going to come out 100 plus. I do know. And so I just needed to share that with you on a public platform. And this is I started off saying, this is me. So I'm going to share this. Yeah. So giving you your flowers right now, and so appreciative of how you show up for our communities. I think that's really important. It's one thing to be a successful business, but it's another thing when you take all of that success and you put it towards empowering your community and making the community a better place for all. So thank you for that.
I do want to say one thing. So we're giving flowers. I have to give you your flowers. So I remember when we went to dinner a while ago. So
Like a long time ago,
a
right?
long time ago. And we sat there and you were mentioning some of the things that you were doing and the platform. And back then I told you like I saw your podcast and I was a believer then. I'm still a believer now. And I remember setting up the one where you're gracious enough to say, hey, I would love to have Sean on my platform. So being able to do that and just the way that you conducted yourself in the interview, the way how prepared you were, like the crazy thing is, watching Sean's interview and Richard's interview is like, okay, I've known both of them pretty much my entire life. And I was like, wait, I didn't know that. It's like there's something that I found out by the conversation that you had. I was like, and sometimes you brought up stuff that I completely forgot about, and you brought them back. So and I think after Sean's interview, is when I reached out to Richard. I'm like, oh man, you have to do the platform. You have to go on the platform because I assure you, you will have a good time because it will be a conversation. She's going to make you feel comfortable, and I assure you, she's going to do her homework. She's going to do her homework, and it's not even going to seem like an interview. You're just going to have a conversation. So after the interview was concluded, Sean and Richard both said the same thing, like, "Oh man, she's great. Like she's amazing." Like they raved about how they felt comfortable, how you made them feel comfortable in the process. So now that I've come to your platform and I've known you for a while, and I always felt comfortable talking to you, at work and in social settings and work settings, but you do make people feel comfortable. So you have this knack about yourself that you draw people in and they can just be themselves. Like they don't have to pretend to be someone else because you're just 100% authentic. So I give you your flowers because today I got up, I'm like, hey, I get to do Cheryl's platform today. And as it got closer, I didn't get nervous during the whole play, but about 10 minutes into it, I started to get a little nervous. I'm like, wow, I'm actually doing Cheryl's platform. So it was one of those
Wow.
things. So I enjoyed it. You are amazing. I tell you that all the time. You are amazing. So thank you for allowing me to do this. Thank you for allowing Sean to do this. I won't thank you for Richard because he's Richard. So, but I do appreciate the time. I really do.
I certainly do. And like I told Sean and Richard ahead of you, well, during their episodes, I want to give you the stage right now for you to give any shout outs to anybody. I mean, we get here, we come into this world by ourselves and we leave sometimes by ourselves, but along the way we have amazing experiences and there's people that we like to think along the way. So I'm going to give the platform to you right now so that if there's any shout outs that you want to give, this is your opportunity to do so.
Well, I want to give a shout out to family, and it's funny because my immediate family, they're all very private, so I would just say family.
Gotcha.
Immediate family, they are definitely the backbone of who I am. They support me in what I do. You have your good days, you have your bad days, but regardless of that, you're still a family, and they allow me to be myself, and they support me. And there's days where I'm just like, I don't know if this is the right move, but they're like, no, you keep going forward. We believe you. I'm here to help. What do you need help with? So definitely to my family, from a business standpoint, dreams and legacies, they're all great. So there's Dre, there's Red, there's Toya, there's Mel, Rashida, and there's Rick. So they make up dreams and legacies, and they took a chance on Sean to sign him, and to his first production deal. So I definitely appreciate them and the work that they do behind the scenes and helping make this what it's going to be. Because Sean's project is definitely going to be huge. I tell you right now, he's working with some great people, so the project's going to be amazing. And then I also have to give a shout out to um, Richard, who drives me crazy, but Richard, his family stuff. I always sit there and tell him like we go so far back because we grew up together, so we were just close, and we don't talk every single day, but every time we do talk, it's like we talk every single day.
Right.
So, and he's been one where I was able to kind of watch him in his career, and he kind of just how he maneuvered in his career, how the different steps and you know the different scenarios that he placed himself in or that he found himself in, and how he was able to come out of those with just it's either a lesson or a success. He's never lost, so
Right.
he'll sit there and tell you like, hey man, this happened today, but it's always a lesson. So he never looks at things as a loss. And then of course my parents, who I love dearly, and they kind of, my dad was one who kind of took me down this logical path. So I always try to think of things logically. My mom is just a very loving person. So that's where I get the, loving and support aspect from. My sister, Tasha, who is, I will tell you, I won't tell you that she's crazy, but she knows. But my sister Tasha, who is my rock, like she is true when it comes to ride or die. She is a true ride or die. She will do anything in the world for me, and I will for her son Darius, and my other nephew, not my other nephew, my other sister Tasia, who just had my new nephew.
Oh,
So Maddox is out there, so love them and her husband Wes. So my family is very important to me. I love all of them. My in-laws, Donnie, Michi, who are brother-in-laws who really support Sean and what Sean does as well. Dominique, Hannah, all of them. So I'm blessed. That's the one thing I'll tell you. I'm blessed. I have really good people around me, and they all are pursuing their dreams in their own right, and they allow me to be myself at all times. So I appreciate that about them.
that is awesome. Well, with that being said, I have to say this, the folks that support us and are there as we're pursuing whether our entrepreneurial dreams, the businesses that we already have in place, it really means a lot when you have the love and support of the people who love you the most. As my grandmother would say, when you're looking your ugliest, those are the people who are there and so appreciative. And jumping on that, just because we've talked about, pretty much everyone on your roster, but I know like Sean recently blessed the platform, and I know that mental health is very important to him, as to me as well. Like I said, I started this platform to kind of work through some things that I was going through on a personal level, and I always say before I end, it's important for us to check in with each other, but it's really important to check in with yourself. Mental health it's what sustains us on a daily basis, whether it's personal relationships, being at work, literally being on the 805 or the 405 on the freeway, all of those things are relevant. And so I encourage you all to just take a moment, check in with yourself. And if you find that you're not okay, it's okay to say you're not okay.
Yeah.
It's totally okay to say you're not okay. And I don't know if you're in a place like me where I'm blessed to have a great support system and friends like Henry here, but definitely there are agencies that you can reach out to that will offer support, and I definitely offer my platform in that sense as well. You can always reach out to me, Cheryl, at All About the Experiences, and All About the Experiences on all of my social media platforms, because I'm all about lifting as we climb.
Yeah.
And so, with that being said, Henry, thank you. Thank you for blessing the platform. Thank you for sharing your journey. And I look forward. I'm going to make it a point. I'm going to put it on my calendar, October the 7th. I want to be at that celebrity flag football game. And I want to see all of your hard work and collaborations with community partners come together and be there to see you shine as you always do. So with that being said, I want to bid everyone adieu. And again, thank you for joining us today. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you.